This year, as you probably know, we're exploring abundance in community. So this morning, we're taking a closer look at our surrounding community, Alexandria. And we're very fortunate to have Carrie Beach here. She is the division chief of neighborhood planning and community development for the city's Department of Planning and Zoning. Is that right? She will provide an overview of the city demographics and information on long-range planning. As we listen to and talk with her, let us think about how Westminster can continue to prepare for community changes and respond to community needs, especially as we think of the changes we will be going through associated with the capital campaign. So thank you very much, Carrie.
Thank you.
Oh, Doug?
Is the mic on? I'm not sure.
Yes, it is.
Is on. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and be with you this morning on this chilly October day. Again, I'm Carrie Beach. I have lived in the city for 25 years, and I've been working for the Department of Planning and Zoning for about 20-ish of those years in the Long Range Planning Division. I'm a Virginian. I was born and raised in Loudoun County, and raised our 3 daughters in Delray, and they went through the ACPS school system. And my last one just graduated in June or May, whenever that was, and I'm still recovering from that. So anyway, happy to be here. I'm going to try and not talk too much, have opportunity for people to ask questions, and I'll be asking you all a few questions just to keep everyone awake before church, and I'll get started. So Alexandria is a really interesting place. We've got a long history, as you know. Obviously, tens of thousands of years ago, we were Native American land, and there were a number of different tribes who lived here. We were formally established in 1749, and have dabbled in being part of the District of Columbia for a bit of time, and then came back, and we were our own part of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we've grown over time as well. So this is kind of showing you how the city has, we started just as Old Town, right? And over the decades, it's going a little fast, isn't it? Let me see if I can pause it. Oops. Hold on here.
I think we're taking over the world.
Yeah, we've already gone into Fairfax. Let's see. I don't even know how to stop that. That's crazy. Okay. Imagine it's going a little slower. But
Put me down.
so for the first, until 1950, we were essentially just Old Town and Parker Gray. And then in 1930, we took we annexed land from Arlington and went over into the town of Potomac and Potomac Yards, Alexandria, Delray, and here in Rosemont and Beverly Hills. And then in 1951, we took annexed this much larger chunk to the west from Fairfax County, which is basically everything west of Quaker Lane, which included Seminary Hill and everything south of Duke Street. And today we're 15 square miles. We've been an incorporated city since 276 years. And we are a pretty dense city, which means we have a lot of people per square mile compared to some of our neighboring jurisdictions, because we really were based on that original Old Town framework of a very grid-oriented urban street plan. Just a little bit about who we are. Scott was asking me, I want to make sure people kind of get the context of who lives in our city and what our city is made up of. So that chart on the left, which it's okay if you can't see all the numbers, but basically it shows you how from 1950 to 1970, we had a pretty big surge of population because of our annexation and a growth in birth rate here, but also nationally, obviously. And then we've continued to grow about, on average, 1.5%. since then, and today we have a population that it's around 168,000. And anytime we're not in a census year, so that's every 10 years, obviously, we have to kind of estimate a little bit. We have, of course, the American Community Survey from the Census Bureau, but it's not as accurate, so we have to do some estimating. So around 168,000. We have just a little bit about the city itself. We have 2 local historic districts, 7 National Register historic districts, 20 miles of multi-use trails, 5 metro rail stations, 2 metro rail lines, the yellow line, the blue line. Those of you who've been here for a while know that we used to just have 4 metro stations, and we just added Potomac Yard in the last couple of years. We have 30 plus bus routes, 3 planned transitway corridors, one of which is happening, the Potomac Yard transitway. The other 2 are in planning stages. And we have a really robust local bus system, the Dash system, which hopefully you all take advantage of because it's free. And it's a really accessible bus line. They've been recording, this is actually last year's number, 4.5 million boardings, but it grows and grows. Go ahead.
So the historic districts, is that the 9 of them, I guess, are those all sort of in the Old Town area, or are they all over the city?
They are clustered on the east side of the city, but so the local historic districts are the ones that are locally regulated. So that is Parker Gray and Old Town. The other ones they're considered national historic districts, so they're on the National Register, but they're not locally regulated. So that's Town of Potomac. I'm pretty sure Park Fairfax was one, right? And some other smaller ones, which now are Rosemont, now are escaping me. If I was from the Historic Preservation Division, I would be much better suited to answer that question. But generally, they tend to be on the eastern half of the city.
Delray maybe, I'm not sure.
Town of Potomac actually is
Oh.
what Delray
That is
was
Delray.
called originally. Yeah, exactly. Sure.
I have not heard of Parker Gray before. Where is that?
It's around the Braddock Metro Station, so it's west of Old Town, west and north, kind of.
Thank you.
We also have a pretty good park network in the city, so we measure it as about 55% of the city is within a 5-minute walk of public park, which is a great measure of the assets that the city has to offer. We are unique in a lot of ways as a city. We have about 25% of our population is foreign born. About 18% is Hispanic or Latino. And I'm going to show you some national comparisons in a second, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a tech. Our median age is about 37. Roughly divided between male and female, but a little more females than males. Our median household income about 113,000, and we are about 55% white, 20% African American, and then the remainder is of other race and ethnicities. So any guesses on where Alexandria falls in terms of our foreign-born population? Higher or lower than the national average? Yep. What about median age? What would be your guess there? I've got a higher, I've got a lower. Okay, what about educational attainment?
Higher.
Higher. What about median household income?
Higher.
Yep, doing pretty well here. Okay, I've got some demographers in my hand.
What about the age?
What was the age? Yeah, what was the age?
A little bit lower.
A little bit lower.
So the national is 39. The foreign-born nationally is about 12%. So we are much more diverse from our population standpoint in that way. We actually have a lower Hispanic Latino percentage, although not significantly lower. Significantly higher educational attainment compared to the national of 39%. And significantly higher, as you all said, median household income from 84,000 is the national and 113 is Alexandria. A little bit more on this. We have, you remember we have about 165,000 residents in the city. We have about 80,000 housing units. And that's all kinds of housing units, from the kinds that you see here in Beverly Hills to, large tower type multifamily buildings to townhouses, et cetera. We are almost 60% renter occupied, which we'll talk about the comparisons again, about 40% owner occupied. We have a pretty transient population. About 50% of our population turns over every 5 years. So there's about 50% of us that are sticking around a long time. I feel like I'm one of those. 25 years I've been here. I know some of you have been here a long time as well. But then another 50% are moving every 5 years, are turning over every 5 years. And I think that has to do with where we're located next to the federal government and a lot of career type and military, a lot of career type moves. We have about 2 people per household on average. You can see we have pretty small household size overall. And the majority of our units are, I should say about 14% of our units are single unit, so single unit detached. So that's like a single family home that you would see here in Beverly Hills. But we have, a variety of townhouses, multifamily buildings, etc. And for the comparison, anyone have any, let's guess, renter versus owner. Would you say that Alexandria has more renters than than the US?
Yes.
Yep. And what about household size? Would you say Alexandria is higher or lower?
Lower.
Okay, I heard a little bit of both. Let's see. So you're right. Nationally, the renter occupied housing is about 35%, and we are at about 2.5% nationally for persons per household. So we're a little lower.
Is that, do we track though, like pretty normal for like a urban suburban?
Yeah, that's about on
Yeah.
average for an urban location. So I'm in long range planning, and we also need to think ahead and start looking at what the projections are in terms of our population and our population's needs. It's not as risky as, say, placing a bet or gambling on something, but I think it is, things happen that change what we expect. A pandemic, government shutdowns, the way we live and work is dramatically changing over the last decade. And I would suggest that maybe over the next couple of decades, it will continue to change with technology changes, and as we, the way we work and live changes. But these are just some statistics that I put together about, the future in terms of how our population is anticipated to change. By 2050, we're going to have a pretty high percentage of age 25 to 34-year-olds. We already do, but it's going to remain high and a little higher than the rest of the country, or than the national average.
None of these figures have shown low income housing, have they?
No, I haven't talked about that yet. Yeah. It's incorporated into all, that's
Understood.
part of the statistic. Yep. 80% of our households will be 1 or 2 households. So that's an increase from where we are today. 65% increase in US housing prices since 2000. So this is looking back. That's huge. I bought my house here in Delray in 2000, and I certainly would not be able to move here today on my husband's salary. And median household income has really stayed relatively flat. and purchasing power is lower. So that's something to be thinking about, especially when you're thinking about affordable housing. This statistic is also pretty sobering. 60% of people in the US could afford to buy a house in 1960. Today, 43% can afford to buy a house in the US. By 2035, adult 65 plus will outnumber the children in the US for the first time. We see that statistic pretty consistently in Alexandria as well. Our age 65 plus is continuing to grow. So we have kind of two large groupings of that 25 to 34 and the age 65 plus. 12% of Alexandrians will be 65 plus by 2050, which of course, you know, you need to think about how you plan your city and design buildings and design infrastructure when you're thinking about different needs in the city. So how do we use all of that data? We use it in the way I was just mentioning, but we do a lot of traffic and transportation studies when we're thinking about both long-term planning and individual development projects. We need to think about that when we're thinking about stormwater planning and sewer planning. Facilities, what kind of schools are we going to need? What kind of other facilities do we need? Senior centers, do we need more? What type of social services do we need to be providing? We also use this data for regional coordination. The Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments organizes us regionally, all the jurisdictions nearby, and we do a long-range population and employment forecast. So we look at projecting what development's going to happen in our jurisdictions, and we multiply that out to say, okay, what's our population and employment going to be for the next 40 years? Housing policy is another big one, looking at, you know, what we need to have. We need to have people who can work and live in Alexandria, and how can we make sure that we try to fill those needs. We need to make sure we have park space and recreation centers for the population. So all of that data goes into this idea of long-range planning. Any questions so far?
If there's time, you know, I don't want to mess up.
No,
What's-
no.
What's driving the growth of the young adult population? And is that, if they can't afford houses, then they leave, right? Are they part of the big transient part? It's the 50% of people who are leaving every 5 years?
Yeah, I think it is part of it. I don't think it's all of it. I think we have a lot of military families, and we have a lot of people who are posted here for the government who get posted elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I think for a long time, 25 to 34, this has been a little bit more of an affordable place than DC for some of that population. And generally they're living in the multi-unit apartment type housing. But yes, we do, you know, I would venture to guess that that is part of the population that is, you know, churning a little bit. And there's so much more flexibility now in terms of where you can live, because many people don't have to, you know, commute to be in a job in place every day anymore. Although that, again, is a little bit unpredictable. It keeps kind of ebbing and flowing in terms of workplace. So, like I said, it's a bit of a guessing game.
Yeah.
And I'm not a demographer per se, so doing my best to, go ahead.
So I've lived in DC and I recently moved to Alexandria. One of the things that I noticed is that there's a larger subsidy on housing in DC. While it is still somewhat, I would say, so the way that we do finances is that we say that about a third of your finances should go towards housing. Within DC, while they do have more housing availability for lower income, then they can charge you up to 50% of your income for a month in order to live in those housing. What I noticed with Alexandria is that while we do have a higher overall income, that we're still holding our, I guess, subsidized housing more towards the median income of the United States. My question with that and why I bring it up is because we have a higher income, but that's also because of the price of living. So what are we doing in order to account that the price of living is higher here, but we still have individuals that aren't able to apply for that subsidized housing, even though they are still considered what would be in poverty, not by national standards, but by regional standards?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what we do in Alexandria and around the region, when we're deciding how, so there's two types of affordable housing, right? There's many types, but they fall into two general categories. There's market affordable, which means that a housing unit is affordable just by naturally affordable because of its age, its condition. Maybe it's not as convenient. Maybe it doesn't have a rooftop pool and, it doesn't have all the amenities. So that's market affordable. Then there's committed affordable or income restricted, which is where there's some sort of a government limitation on the rent that can be charged in that building. And it is based on area median income. And so the area median income is established based on the average of this area. So it is indexed to the region that it's based in. So in Alexandria, if I remember correctly, typically 60% AMI, that means that people who make, say the area median income for a family of 4 in Alexandria is, I'm gonna kind of make these numbers up because I can't recall them off the top of my head, but say it's 60% of the area median income for a family of 4 is $100,000. So that means that those rental apartments that are committed, affordable, or income restricted have to charge less than whatever the monthly rent is for, sorry, I'm getting into the details, for 100,000 AMI, area median income. And it is based, as you said, on you should not be spending more than 30% of your income on housing. So there's a lot of details that go into it. And between those two pots of housing, the naturally occurring market affordable and the income restricted, ideally, people who need affordable housing can afford to live in Alexandria. Now, that's not the case. There's not enough of either of those things, there's a housing shortage regionally and nationally for that group of people. And the more housing we build, the less those naturally occurring affordable housing units are unattainable. So it's a pretty complicated set of factors that go into it, but it is right, and that's the kind of thing that we're thinking about as we're planning for the future. It's a tough nut to crack. So in Alexandria, we break the city up into, they're called small area plans. So we have 18 kind of neighborhood areas that we plan for in the city. And we also have kind of topical chapters like mobility or affordable housing or environment. And all of those chapters come together to make up the city's master plan. And that's essentially, we're planning for, 25 years out. What do we need to be thinking about? What is the vision for the future for these different areas? Here in Westminster, I think we're in the Northridge Rosemont small area plan, which is a small area plan that doesn't anticipate much change in terms of new development. It's a pretty steady state kind of neighborhood, maybe on that outer ridge near Alexandria. I think there's a little bit of multifamily, but in general, it's a pretty steady state kind of plan. And why does planning matter? Well, there's a lot of things that you do every day that are impacted by planning for the future. So how you get somewhere, where you go to school, whether there's a library, where you do your grocery shopping, how you get there. All of these things are parts of or elements of how we plan for the future. And and really, how does it feel to live in this city? What does it feel like when you walk down the street? When you, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel, is it a more car-oriented place? Is it a more walkable place? All of these things are impacted by our planning for the future. And it's important because there are some really, important elements of planning that that will decide whether or not Alexandria is a sustainable place and a sustainable economy. So we have issues of housing, which impacts whether we have enough people who can have jobs and who can live here. Did you have a question? I'm happy to answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything about apartment buildings or housing, even, other types of buildings that have elevators in them?
Yes, yes.
Are they insisting that they have elevators now when they build them?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Building code is, there's national standards and there's state standards that ensure that all new buildings have to be accessible.
And what about, ice? Any encounters in here other than the one with the, I think it was Arlington that had the metal, the roof taken away?
Yes. ICE has, there's, that, we might have to table that, but yes, ICE has been taking, people from Alexandria as well,
Oh,
in
I
Arlandria,
heard there was
just
some
down
on
the street.
Beauregard and Olmsted the other day.
Yeah. So there are these larger kind of issues that we need, that planning is important for, so that we can remain competitive in the region. We are creating a place that people love and feel comfortable in. We can attract jobs, and have a balanced economy. We can have housing for all of our different residents to live in. One of the other things that is really helpful, as we are redeveloping for the future, so we have new construction and buildings, is that we're becoming more sustainable. So a lot of the older buildings that we have in the city are not sustainable, have, say, a lot of surface parking, aren't thinking about more efficient ways of dealing with stormwater, heating and cooling, energy use, and other ways of being better for the environment. So that's one of the benefits of new construction in the city. It's very important to be thinking about where people can get outside. We know that in the pandemic, that was a really crucial thing for people to be able to go outside and still be able to interact a little bit, but have places to gather and play. And then the image on the right is about building and scale, and that's something that's a little tricky. It's something that we, Old Town has gotten lots of awards nationally. I don't know if you all know this, but for being a very walkable place. It's like, top 10 places for a pedestrian or a visitor to enjoy an environment. And it's because it feels, it's this intangible, it feels good to be there. It feels like the pedestrian is not overwhelmed by speeding cars. It's a pleasant place to walk. The buildings are at an appropriate scale. And so we think about all of these things as we design new spaces and new buildings, the spaces created by new buildings into the future. Other things we're thinking about are connectivity. How do we get from one place to the next? What are the block sizes? Are we creating places that give you options for getting around, different ways of getting around, by foot, by car, by bus? Are there trails? What about safety? So the image in the middle is of a biker crossing at a crosswalk, and with street trees up and down the street. So those street trees and the bike path and the cars all make that a street where multiple users can feel safe, right? Walking along the street, you've got the trees, which provide shade. You've got a safe place to walk. The parked cars are creating a bit of a buffer, which we call side friction, which helps the cars driving down the street slow down. I don't know if you all have noticed, say on Route 1, if you're coming from Old Town North and, you're coming out of, that Braddock area, up over the bridge, and then down into the Potomac Yard area. People are going fast, right? They're going fast over that bridge. And then when you come down the next side, people tend to slow down a little bit. And there's some different environmental changes between those two locations. So when you're going up and over the bridge, there's no side friction, right? There's no trees, there's no parked cars, there's no sidewalk. Well, it's fenced off to the side. And then as you come down into Potomac Yard, you've got rows of street trees on both sides. You've got the buildings that are closer by, and we call that side friction. And it's a way for car drivers to sort of, they get signaled that it's time to slow down. Now, there's also police that are checking speed, but that to me is a really good example of the signals that we can use in urban planning to tell people to slow down. This is an environment for people, all people using all different modes of transportation, not just cars that are, speeding through. So these are just some of the things that we think about as we're going through. This is just a couple of slides that we like to show about why connectivity is important. Having multiple routes is an important thing. I was driving back from Charlottesville yesterday, and a tractor trailer had tipped over a load of hay, like those big round bales of hay. And we were fortunate in that there was a way around, and we didn't have to all just stop and wait while they cleaned up the road. But it's this idea of alternate routes, right? If you have a lot of the suburban development that you might see in, say, Loudoun County or some of the suburban jurisdictions, there's one way in and there's one way out. And if there's a problem with one of those roads, everything's going to shut down. And Alexandria is very fortunate to have a more traditional gridded street network. So it provides a lot of options for the ways we get around. And this is just a demonstration showing you that one street, one route, two by two streets, you get two routes, and it's not just exponential, it's like a factorial. I'm not a mathematician. I stopped at calculus, but basically the more redundancy in the grid network that we create, the more opportunities there are to get around and not kind of have a highway oriented city and neighborhood.
Can you,
Yeah.
sorry, can I ask you a question about that last one? So,
Yeah.
I think this is really interesting, and like, I'm a longtime Alexandria person too. And so I love that one on the left, but I also wonder about like the advantage of the one on the right.
Yeah.
Is like, cause I have friends and family who live in neighborhoods like that, is like you run around the cul-de-sac, right? And in the one on the left, like there's no street you can run around it, like not a one, right? And so like, how do like
Yeah,
those kinds of decisions,
Sure, there are pros and cons, of course. But you can also say that with the one on the left, the streets are going to be much tamer. Because, like, for example, in Delray, there's cars parked on both sides, and so you really can't drive fast. I mean, you have to move over when you see another car coming the other way. It's a pretty tame environment, and so that's one of the benefits of that kind of a neighborhood. Not to say that I know there's lots of great things about cul-de-sacs as well. I think this is just trying to make the point of if everybody needs to use the same arterial all the time, then there are going to be lots of issues with traffic. Yes.
I'm concerned about the electric scooters that are out with the vehicular traffic.
Yes.
I'm aware of a really bad accident where the scooter just wasn't visible at all
Yes.
to the oncoming traffic. So who determines whether those scooters can be on the road?
Yeah, that is a challenge. I'm glad you brought that up. it is nice that there are different ways of getting around, and we need to make sure that they're not a safety hazard for the scooter user or the driver. The city does allow them or not allow them. It is the city who makes that call. And I don't know a lot about what the city's ability to regulate them further is, so I can look into that and find out for you, but you raise a good point. This is just an example of a recent small area planning process. So my division, each year or so, it's about 18 months, we are working on updating those small area plans that I mentioned before, the chapters of the city's master plan. And several years ago, we were updating the small area plan for North Potomac Yard. And as part of that planning process, we have community meetings and, you know, the people who live in the neighborhood are the experts in their neighborhood and what is best for the neighborhood. And so during one of those workshops, on the far left, you see a graphic of, you know, we were just sketching and talking and thinking about like, what could this neighborhood look like in the future? And that graphic is from those community meetings. The middle picture you see is how we reflected that in the small area plan that was approved by city council. And then hopefully some of you have been on this path, but the image on the right is that path is constructed now, and it goes sort of behind the metro station and towards Arlington County. But it's a really great sort of reflection of how the process works and how important it is to have people participating and weighing in and sharing their expertise about their neighborhoods and what can happen as a result. It's a great path. It's one of the things I'm super proud of in the city is that path that goes all the way from the Braddock Metro, well, even further south than that, but up through Potomac Yard. It's really
Sort of, I've been on that path just, I think, last weekend. And there were sort of two questions related to how that path comes down in Old Town. The first is I'm sort of wondering what the status is on the old power plant.
Yeah.
And the second question is, making the connection at the parks there, there's one final warehouse that's sitting there by the railroad track. And I think there's a restaurant supply in there,
Oh,
but
okay, yeah.
that's, I think, well, actually, that's not
That's
part
further
of the
south. than
water,
Old
yeah.
Town. Yeah.
And what's the plan for that?
Yeah. So I think I'm just gonna make you dizzy for a second and go back to this map so you can see. So I think, oh, I guess you can't see yeah, you sort of can, right, tiny, but I think you're talking about, so this is where my arrow is, which you can't see, but it's in, the lower part of, Potomac Greens and then here in Old Town North. The power plant is right here.
And you can go around that on the path.
You can, that's part of the Mount Vernon Trail, so it's a
Right.
little different, that's a different trail.
Oh,
But so the city had a coal-fired power plant for many, many years, and it got shut down about 15 years ago, I'm gonna say. And now since then, it has been a vacant power plant. With fencing all around it, and we later did the Old Town North Small Area Plan update, and as part of that provided recommendations and requirements for the redevelopment of that power plant. Since then, a developer has purchased the site and has submitted their plans for redeveloping it. And we anticipate within the next 5 years, at least, that the first phase of it will be under construction. And as part of that, there are many requirements for enhancing that trail system and integrating it with parks facing the waterfront. Great question.
Before you move from that,
Yeah.
can you point out to where this church is on your map?
Yeah.
I think I know, but I'm not sure.
Somewhere, I would say roughly around here.
Oh,
It's hard with no streets, but,
Okay.
so Potomac West, so this is Del Rey. This is
Mm.
Mount Vernon Avenue. Can you see my arrow?
yeah.
That's Mount Vernon Avenue, roughly down the middle there. And then I would say,
It's
somewhere
north.
around
I think your line between your two blues is probably about Russell Road.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
appropriate.
And
Yeah.
so
Okay,
we're, you know, a couple blocks inside of
Yeah.
that.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you.
of course. This is really just my plug for participating in planning for the future, and it, based on hopefully that graphic that I showed before of the park idea to the park being built on the ground. And it can be fun and engaging and interesting, and we need everybody's perspectives. We don't want to be hearing from just the same folks all the time. This gives you a little list of all the different ways you can get involved and be informed in Alexandria. Hopefully, many of you already do get e-news. Anybody heard of e-news before? Yes?
I get a
All
lot
right.
of stuff.
All right, lucky winner right there, great. So e-news is the city's, basically it's an email system, but you can sign up for things that you're interested in. So you can say, I only want to get emails about affordable housing, or I only want to get emails about long-range planning projects, which of course all of you will want to sign up for after this. And essentially you get emails that tell you, okay, there's a meeting on, next month about X, Y, Z. You can also get lots of information if you go to our planning webpage. And a new thing that we've been doing is every other month we have an online community update, and it's really easy to join in. It's on Zoom. We send you an email through that e-news system. Click on the Zoom link, and it's for 1 hour every other month, and you can learn about what's happening in the planning world. So there will be updates on that, the power plant development, what's on the upcoming planning commission docket. Right now, my division is doing a small area plan update for the Duke Street corridor. So we provide updates on what's happening with that. Sometimes we have updates from other departments to talk about their planning. So right now, the housing office is doing an update to their housing master plan on affordable housing, that kind of thing. But it's really easy. You can do it from the comfort of your living room, and tune in for an hour, and you can ask questions, and all the questions get answered. We also record all of those meetings, and they're all posted, so you can go back and look at previous recording.
What is P and Z?
Planning and zoning. So that's my department.
There are so many opportunities for information sharing in the city. I don't know where to begin, but I usually recommend people sign up for AEDP's newsletter.
That is a good one.
Alexandria Economic Partnership Deal. And they come out every Monday morning. That's a good,
I learn a lot from that newsletter too. I agree with you. It's a good one.
Agenda Alexandria. Many.
Yeah, city council, there's a weekly update about city council. But if you go to the e-news or the planning site, you can learn more, and I'm happy to, AEDP is pretty easy to find online, Alexandria Economic Development Partnership, to sign up.
Stephanie Landrum.
Yes,
Yeah.
to sign up for that weekly email. Very helpful.
And one reason, this is Carol, she's, how many years were you a small business owner in Old Town?
33 years.
30 years, so there's.
And I still am.
Still,
I
yeah, okay.
I still own that small business. It's just on the web. No,
Okay.
I gave up my retail space this last June
Okay, and where was that?
on 1124 King Street. I had
Oh.
Imagine Artware.
Oh, love that place.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, you'll go, you have a scarf from
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah, that's a great store. Oh, I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, no, I was very much involved in all of the city
Mm-hmm.
business organizations and committees and leadership and First Night Alexandria,
Mm-hmm.
so I still am.
Great, that's excellent. I'm glad to hear it. It's good to have all those different perspectives, like I mentioned, the business perspective, the person who's an advocate for affordable housing, the person who knows a lot about the environment, to have all of those, all of that brain power creating our framework for the future. So that's wonderful. I think that about covers it. I think we did our questions throughout, but I'm happy to answer more questions. Yeah.
As part of your demographic data, do you have anything on affiliation with places of worship and how that has changed in Alexandria over time?
I am quite sure that the census, the long form probably has the decennial census, so the every 10 years may have some information about that. Or actually it might be I'm quite sure that in some form or another, the census does have that. Have you ever been to the website by any chance, the
No.
census website? It is overwhelming in terms of the amount of information they have, and so I would recommend starting there. It hasn't been something that we planning have analyzed. We do have a list of all of the houses of worship in the city that for us are good sources of, we're doing a plan in your neighborhood. We'd love to get some of your leaders or interested people to participate, and it's a good source of active, engaged folks who can also then spread the word among their groups. We kind of think of houses of worship and also other nonprofit organizations as good sort of trusted messengers. For example, there are some neighborhoods where people don't feel comfortable attending a government meeting or don't feel either there's language barrier or they're nervous around government. And so we tend to use like Casa Chirilagua or Tenants and Workers, for example, as a way of saying, we can go to them and say, hey, this is the message we're trying to convey. This is the information we're trying to convey. And then they can help us share that information. So
Is that a tactic that you all continue to use? I mean, sort of the broader national trend is a decrease in the level of importance of houses of worship. And so I guess my question, I guess maybe a follow-up would be, is your list shrinking of the number of houses of worship? And do you utilize that tactic any less today than you have historically?
no, I wouldn't say our list is shrinking. I mean, we still use, it's one group among other groups that we use, as I mentioned. So it could be like a social organization or a nonprofit advocacy group, but houses of worship is a key part of that as well. And in fact, in Alexandria, and regionally, there's a lot of faith-based organizations are advocating for affordable housing in a very strong way, and there's actually state legislation that they're pushing to try and make it easier for faith-based organizations who have property to build affordable housing on their property. Yeah,
Thanks.
very active. Yeah.
You talked about both cooperation and competition with other local jurisdictions. And I wonder if you could talk more about like what your relationship is with other jurisdictions. It just strikes me that Alexandria, that everything you do here, like so many residents are employed outside the city.
Yeah.
So many of those transit corridors immediately pass into another jurisdiction,
Yeah.
right? So if you build a beautiful pathway and it ends at the borders of the city of Alexandria, it's like not that
Yeah,
great. But
yeah.
so how does that work?
Yeah, I would say the coordination is much more important in terms of what I'm doing, because for exactly the reasons you talk about, like the path between Alexandria and Arlington and Potomac Yard is a really important. We want to get that finished and continued, and transit, as you mentioned. So we coordinate with Arlington and Fairfax pretty often on various planning projects. We just finished a plan in Alexandria West and met with them on a regular basis to talk about what they were planning on their side of the northern western border of the city. So we coordinate with them a lot, also with the larger Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. there are multiple different, there's housing, there's transportation, groups that we coordinate forecasting and, studies. Environmental issues are another big, if you can't contain environmental, issues and solutions to a jurisdiction, so that's another one where we do a lot of coordination. The competitiveness comes in more in terms of economic development, I would say. Trying to land the next big office user, which is, everybody wants some commercial development in their jurisdiction because the taxes that they provide are and the services that they need create a much better profit for or not profit, but more revenue for the city that can be used to sustain other residential needs. And so jurisdictions are competing for those kinds of users or entertainment venues, et cetera. So that's really where the competitiveness comes in, is economic development. Trying to get visitors, tourists to come. I'm sure all of you have been to King Street recently and walked in the new pedestrian area, and that has been phenomenally successful in terms of attracting taxable income from tourists that come and visit and spend money and then have a good time and then go away and we don't pay for their schooling or their anything else. So, there's different factors that come into play.
I just want to say a word of thanks for the process. And maybe everybody here is already aware of this, but Alexandria is really a prize in terms of being able to affect that process as individual citizens. And but for that process and Alexandria as it is, we would be surrounded by high-rise development. In Park Fairfax, for instance, there are going to be 5 or 6 high-rises in Park Fairfax until the Citizens Association, with the help of some former people on city council and elsewhere, closed it down basically, and came to us after a year and said, let us build one and we'll go away and leave you alone. and that's how Park Fairfax was saved.
Yeah.
Through the activities of the Park Fairfax Citizens Association, which we just started in '64.
Yeah.
And help of various people and seeing to it that it didn't get steamrolled through.
Yeah, we really do pride ourselves on the community engagement element of our work. It is a huge part of what we do. We devote a lot of resources to making sure that that the plans that we're developing are developed by the people who live in the place. Yeah.
So speaking of high rises and going back to the coal plant question.
Yeah.
My understanding is that there are plans to build 4 or 5 20-story buildings on the old coal yard.
Mm-hmm.
What are the plans for getting rid of the old power plant?
The developer who owns that property and will be developing it is on the hook for both removing the old infrastructure, and they have to do a lot of environmental remediation to the site as well to get rid of
You're not building another coal power plant.
No. No.
But my understanding is the high rises will come first and then we'll tackle the coal plant. And I would rather see it happen the other way around.
To be honest, I'm not sure about that.
They've
I
had
would be
several
surprised.
public meetings.
Yeah.
You can visit them. I
Yeah.
don't know
They
what's
do.
scheduled now, but
They actually were offering tours.
I took some tour.
yeah.
I took the tour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting to go see some of the.
Yes, I have photos from it.
Mhm.
It was fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I
In the
think we have
back.
time for one more question, just to watch the
Okay.
time for everybody. so.
What is the status of this lack of the closing down of the single family zone? It was knocked down in Arlington, getting rid of single family can't think of the right word I want, but the
Zoning?
zoning.
Yeah. Well, so the changes in zoning, we're not getting rid of single family zoning. It was just, changing some of the regulations around it. And there is a lawsuit, underway right now. I'm not really privy to the details of it. I think it's still stuck in court. Sorry, I'm not much of a help on that one.
Okay, all right, well, we, need to wrap up now. Carrie, thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
Of course.
I am so grateful that we are living in a city where their leadership will come and spend their time on a Sunday morning with us. And I just, I trust that we'll all keep this in what we've learned in mind and look at how we're, a good steward, part of the city. And we demand of you to continue the good work you're doing. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the great questions.